All right, let's continue on here. So basically, this webinar is titled, as you can see, "Giving Your Trade a Second Chance." The reason of this webinar is because, like a lot of times, what happens is that when we see a clean move, when we see a clear move, what happens is that we'll take a trade, we'll get stopped out, and after a while, price will still go in our way, right? So that's very frustrating. And I've been back testing. Well, I'm not been back. I've been live testing this. I've been testing how to take, the second entries, or how to give your trade a second chance. So now, you have to be very careful when you're giving your trade a second chance. You have to be mindful of the fact that you need to keep risk managed, because if you don't keep risk managed, and if you're using your full risk on the first attempt, and the second attempt is going to be added risk, then it's not going to work. It's going to be very, very risky. So this webinar is for you if you see a perfect trade but get stopped out all the time, don't know where to enter, where to put stop losses. I know we've been through this second point a lot of times, so I think it's going to be a good refresher to go over this again. Trade runs in your favor after getting stopped out. So we're going to see how we can enter second positions, trading based on fear rather than logic. What this basically means is that when you take a trade, and it's a logical trade, it makes sense, you take a trade, it stops you out, and then when the new opportunity comes, you're not confident enough to take that trade. Why? Because now you're trading based on fear. Now you're trading based on the fact that, okay, you got stopped out the previous time, so now this time you might get stopped out again. But in reality, the new trade is completely independent of the last trade, right? So let's move forward here. Let's see what we got. So first of all, we need to identify what are the best times to trade. Most people, what they do is they want to come back, they want to come in the afternoon sessions, or they want to come in around, when there's not enough volume. So you need to identify what are the best times to trade. The number one best time to trade is when there's volume in the market, right? So you have to ask yourself, when is there volume in the market? When markets open or when markets close? That's when you have a lot of volume in the market. So if you think about it, the only time we should be trading is when, let's say you're coming to the market when there's pre-New York. When you have pre-New York, there's a lot of volume in the market, so that means you could catch some moves. That means the candles are going to be big enough for you to catch a trade. So let's say pre-New York, New York open, and then you have London close. Actually, let's go to the next slide right over here. Okay, perfect. So when we're over here, these are the premium times to trade. Let me get the red one here. So you can screenshot this, take a picture, whatever you want to do. These are the key times to trade. So let's say you're waking up at pre-London, right? Pre-London, there's going to be some sort of volume between 1:30 and 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is the key time to trade when there's going to be volume in the market. What most people do is, now when you come to the markets, you're told three things, right? The first thing you're told is that, hey, you know what, man, this market, it's opened 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. So you can trade at any time you want, Second thing you're told is it's a $5.2 trillion market. So that means you can get as much money from it possible. The third thing is that the market is there to serve you. That's wrong. You are there to serve the market, right? So you need to identify what times are going to suit you best, right? Let's say you have a job, right? You have a job and you come home and the only time you have left to trade is this time. Or maybe you come home at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. So you only have this time to trade. Pre-Asian and Asian. So when you're coming to the charts that, let's say, after Asian Open, or let's say at around 11 p.m. Eastern, when there's no volume, what you're going to notice is that the candles are going to be smaller. There's not going to be enough volume in the candles. The candles aren't going to print what they're supposed to print, because sometimes what happens is that guys will say, okay, you know what, I'm trying to trade wick fills, and I'm looking at the market at 3 p.m. Eastern. This is afternoon New York time. When all markets are closing, there's no volume, and price prints something that you like, and you try to take a trade, but it doesn't work out. The reason why it doesn't work out is because there's not enough volume in the market. You need volume in the market to move price, right? This is why it's very important. Before we even talk about taking positions, you have to identify what time is going to suit you best to trade. right? Some people, like, there are a lot of guys in my Slack group, they trade pre-London till London Open, because they have identified that, okay, these are the times when there's volume in the market. Me personally, I trade between these times, between 6:30 a.m. Eastern to like 9:30 a.m. Eastern, because I know during this time there's a lot of volume in the market, and this is the only time I'm trying to trade. What most people do is they'll say, oh, you know what, I'm going to trade the London session, and then I'm going to trade the New York session, and then I'm going to trade the Asian session. That makes no sense. And the reason why it makes no sense is because when people come to trading, you come to trading to have independence of time, and when you're focusing on all these different sessions, man, you don't have independence of time. Then you just slave to the markets, because that's what I used to do. I used to come to the charts in the morning. So I would trade the New York, and then I would try to trade the Asian. Asian would be 50-50 because there's less volume